Good morning. My name is Mara Russell. I am with the International Development Division of Land O'Lakes. And before I begin my discussion, I just want to, for those of you who may be wondering, just give you a little bit of information about what is the Land O'Lakes International Development Division, for those who are not familiar. We're a division of Land O'Lakes, which is a U.S.-based cooperative, but it's also a private sector cooperative. It's a very large company, and it markets dairy products that are very familiar to U.S. consumers, but also seeds and feed. But for our division, our vision is to be a global leader in transforming lives and engaging in agriculture and enterprise partnerships that replace poverty with prosperity and dependency with self-reliance. And our mission is to help farmers around the world improve incomes and quality of life. Basically, we're working in the countries that are showing up in blue there. Pretty much East and Southern Africa, Middle East, and South Asia, a few South Asian countries, but we've worked in many countries around the world. We've had about 275 projects in 76 countries, and in 2013 we implemented 33 programs in 24 countries. Basically, we operate very much like an NGO. So we have a project in southern Zambia called the Zambia Fodder Pilot Project. And the goal of the project was to enhance farmer resiliency to environmental and economic shocks. And the objectives that we were trying to meet were, first of all, to integrate fodder and fodder seeds into farming practices, improve household livelihoods through fodder and fodder seed sales. So people were not just producing the fodder, but also selling fodder and fodder seeds. In fact, one of the things that we found also, and we're looking to measure it, is that the availability of fodder, in fact, improved goat growth and dairy production as well over the last couple of years. Finally, basically, we decided, because this is a pilot, that we were going to try to document the best practices and scale them up. The project is funded by USAID, Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance, and it is a disaster risk reduction project. We're targeting 30,000 people over 2 years, basically in Kazangula and Choma districts in southern Zambia and Sesheke district in Western Province. Now, the issues in Zambia are many. Certainly, there are weather and climate shocks. There have been cyclical droughts in southern Zambia, and these were actually exacerbated through an epidemic, a cattle epidemic, CBPP, that took place between 2006 and 2009. And during the height of that epidemic, a large proportion of cattle, there was a cattle movement ban, many cattle died, and many of the cattle that didn't die were actually destroyed. So main source of livelihood, support, and draft for these households was completely wiped out. So household livelihoods were really destroyed in many of these areas. But there's also been sort of chronic poverty in these areas and chronic malnutrition, very high chronic stunting rates. But flooding is also an issue, and there have been a number of times when the Zambezi River has flooded over the years during this period. And finally, in terms of rainfall, it's not good in some years, but in many years, it's unpredictable. In the past, it used to be very predictable. Say 15, 20 years ago, farmers were told that the rain starts sometime in mid-November and goes until mid to late January. And that's when, you know when you put your seeds in the ground, when they're likely to grow. And there might be a little bit of variation, but in general, that was the case. Now, sometimes the rain starts falling early in September, October, and November, and maybe trails off by December, and then you have poor growth if the farmers put their seeds in late October or early November. But more and more frequently, what we're seeing is the rains are getting later. So, for instance, you see them going December, January, or February. Into February, which was the case last year and this year. We saw most of the rains in February, March, and April, which is really anomalous. So there are lots of changes taking place in terms of weather. So what to do? One of the things, just to kind of document what's happening out there, is that there have been some temperature changes. The mean annual temperature has increased by approximately 1.3% centigrade since 1960. And this is predicted to continue to increase over the next, I would say, 50 to 80 years. It's likely, we don't know what the emissions model is going to be. At the very least, we'll see a 2 degree increase, but it could be 3.4 degree increase by 2060. And by 2090, we could see an increase of 1.6 degrees C up to 5.5 degrees C. In terms of rainfall, we don't see too many major changes in the future, although, as I said, the timing is changing. But there has been an annual decline of a rate of 2.3% per decade since the 1960s. There have also been a lot of strange anomalies basically tied to El Nino events. So this really puts the farmer at a disadvantage, and particularly farmers who don't have access to weather information at all. So for instance, farmers who live far away from a major town or city, farmers without communications equipment, who don't have too many links into the Meteorological Society and their kinds of information sources. So it can be a real problem for farmers.